Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment class. This is an overview of the upcoming Globe Sound Healing Conference. This is on sound and emotions. David Gibson is the founder of the Globe Sound Healing Institute, and we're so pleased to talk with him once again. Hello, David.
Hi there, Loren. So nice to be here.
You are using a fine example of how we just use sound to express ourselves, and in particular, release stuck emotions or trauma, stress, anxiety, depression, all of it. So here we have an upcoming conference, and there's a whole beautiful presentation, a lineup of speakers who are sharing some really profound information. You've interviewed all of these people, and with the latest research that has come out, what sticks out in your mind as really helpful and valuable, especially these days?
Boy, dealing with emotions is probably our biggest challenge on this planet, right? And the problem is that if they hang around too long, they can kill you and will kill you, right? As far as negative emotions that are not coherent, right? For a short time, you just let them in. And so to have all this information of people that have been studying this in detail, this is dramatic. They say that disease is up to 100% caused by emotions. If that's true, then this is the most important conference ever. And I've never been so moved. This is our 11th conference. I've never been so moved by the presentations as this time. Because I've got a little bit of trauma, right? If you live on this planet, you really have trauma. And so just all these different techniques from professionals, including a lot of psychotherapists that are now using sound to actually deal with anxiety, which there's so much around, fear, grief, depression, PTSD, addiction. We even talk about autism and dementia, right, as well on the side. And it's just so huge. So the exciting part is I'm now seeing a new development for psychotherapists on the psychotherapy board and in universities for psychotherapists to actually incorporate sound in a very detailed way to make their treatments light years better. And that's what I got out of this whole conference, is a whole way to do it. Now, we've already got detailed treatment plans for for anxiety and depression and all of these. I thought I turned that off. Sorry. And we've got on our site Medical Sound Association. You can go there, and we've had our students for the last 10 years have been creating treatment plans for all of these different issues. So we've collated them together, and then we've got the Medical Sound Association with over 600 doctors and sound therapists and psychotherapists that have been refining these treatment plans over the last 2 years. So we've got exactly the medical details and causes of the different issues. We've got the approach that you would actually use with sound for the different issues. We've got safety guidelines, which are really important, right? Especially if we're bringing it into the medical field. And then we've got intake questions and then actual treatment plans in detail for each of these issues. So we've got that, but now we're refining it even more with all of these different presentations because every area is really detailed. I mean, if you look at you know each area of the emotional areas, I mean, there's all these nuances and all these different types, right? I mean, PTSD is like there's a full range of different types of PTSD and levels, right? So then you have to get into those different levels and how you approach it and whether you have to be really careful. I mean, even with anxiety, there's like a huge difference between just regular anxiety and panic attacks. I mean, you can hardly do any sound with panic attacks. People are wide open and really fragile. Whereas with the first responder that's having anxiety, well, these guys are macho, right? It's so funny. I've got a guy using my sound lounges with the first responders. I said, do they ever freak out because it's turned up too loud? And he goes, Dave, they're first responders, right? So it's quite different. And so we're looking at really refining the way we approach all these different emotional issues in detail to dramatically change everything.
Really fascinating. And you are on the cutting edge, the leading edge of this industry, and you have been for decades now. And it's really wonderful to see this refinement and to see this acceptance in our world, right? With the, oh my gosh, the psychotherapist. Hello. Psychotherapy that only lasts a shorter time than the years in the past. That's significant.
Yeah,
Great groundwork, right?
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's just so many cool. I mean, I learned so much from this conference. There's so many people that are psychotherapy specialists in each area that are doing very detailed treatments that they've been refining for years. And it's like, oh my God, you're doing that, right? And I'm like, I felt like I was just beginning, right? Because there's it's so cool. There's really three areas of how to work with emotions that I learned that kept coming up from all the presenters here. First of all, it's expressing yourself, like you mentioned in the very beginning. There's a there's a lot of people that don't know how to express themselves, especially women who have been squashed by men for tens of thousands of years, especially their throat chakra, right? I mean, it's rampant. I mean, still, in other cultures, it's horrible. In our culture, it's horrible, right? And and even men don't know how to express themselves in a balanced way without being too overbearing because we don't have mentors, right? So people are scared to death to even make a sound. I know so many people. I said, make the sound of how you're feeling, and they look at you like you got two heads, because, and also, our whole culture of music makes people think that they are not good singers, right? It's not about being a good singer. It's about just opening your mouth. And as babies, we had it down, right? I mean, if we had anything going on, we went, ah! So there's so many people that are stopped up, and language kind of sucks for expressing emotion, right? It's really hard to get it right, especially if the emotion is this. How do you put that into words, right? So sound is just so easy, and to get people to be able to actually express themselves, especially right when you have some issue going on where you don't know what to do, and just because it's all about flow, not being blocked up, and just make the sound and go, ah, right? We were born that way and we've lost it now. And so that's the first thing I learned. And there's like Suzanne Sterling is like all about expressing yourself. All of my classes are about expressing yourself and just opening your voice again, right? But then once you express yourself and you really give sound to it, or if it doesn't feel good, change it. And this is so basic. I mean, even Abraham, Esther Hicks talks about this in detail. This is our emotions are our guidance system. If you're not feeling good, don't hang out there. Not only is it not feel good, but it will cause a disease, right? And people think, well, that's just where I am. Well, we're not meant to feel bad on this planet, right? So then, but they go, but it's really hard to shift to love and joy if I'm really upset or I'm really depressed. That's true. That's really true. I can't do it myself, right? If I'm really in it, it's like even to do toning. I was with Jonathan Goldman. He's got a whole technique on humming. He says if you're just having a hard time or you're in an argument, just both of you just do toning and do any vowel, right? And I'm like, and I've tried it, and I was like, no, I want to finish what we're doing first, right? I'm in it. I'm in the fire. I want to stay here. Right? So to do it slowly, it really works. We're even teaching this to the kids. We're doing classes with the 3 to 6 year olds where I say, okay, if you express it and you don't feel good, shift it. Oh, let me turn my original sound on. You can hear me. So you don't even have to shift to love. You don't even have to shift to gratitude, which is sometimes hard when you're in a challenge. But just to shift to a stable, consistent vibration of a vowel, which is the definition of peace, right? Stable, consistent vowels are a stable vibration, and that's where the peace is. Just like crystal bowls or any of the sound healing instruments. And then you can go from there. Jeffrey Thompson goes into scientific detail because he's been studying emotions for ages of how critical it is for your system to go into the parasympathetic. He said it's impossible for your system to have capacity to actually work on emotions when you are in fight or flight, right? Your system is using all its energy for actual adrenaline, getting ready to fight or run, right? And so there is no capacity for you to actually deal with the emotions. It's not the way we're built. We have to go to the parasympathetic, which is peace. which is what all sound healing is about. Stable, consistent tones of bowls, stable, consistent Tibetan bowls, all of the music we listen to. I mean, it's all about getting to this stillness where we can then start and even begin. And he shows that it's not going to happen quick. And that was Shanti actually talked about that in her presentation. It was really interesting. It's like, she gave her story where she was like suicidal. I mean, this is a light being. I mean, Shanti's a light being, right? She was suicidal, had been raped, was in the rock and roll business, and just like hated herself. And she said it took years to shift it. And that was really telling, to not think that if you're really deep in depression, I mean, there's a lot of neural pathways in the brain that have actually got very deep ruts. It can take a while, but to know that step by step you can totally, totally shift it. But then there's the whole aspect, the third component of where are you going once you've shifted those emotions? Well, you're going into higher states of consciousness once you release it. So there's all these different presenters have techniques for how to release it and shift it, right? Including sound tables, using the voice, and they're really simple, right? And then, but after you shift it, where are you? What's the emotion? Well, you do either gratitude. We talk about in the presentations how to do compassion, how to do love with sound, and then how to go to a place of oneness, right? And that's the deal, is when you can then use sound once you've released the emotion and faced it and got it out, to actually be able to access these higher states. Because some people release an emotion and then they just go back and do the same pattern, start it again, right? Because it's so hard. I mean, goodness gracious, the amount of anger and anxiety and depression and fear in the field, all you got to do is walk down the street. And there's so much of it, right? And based on the law of physics, a strong vibration will overcome a weaker. We're so easily entrained into it, but as well as our language being set up to differentiate between good or bad judgment, right? So it's so, I mean, everybody's like, oh, that's cool, that sucks, that's cool, that sucks. That's the norm. That's cool, that sucks. That's how we talk. Instead of, ah, that's just the way it is. And to get to that place where it's just the way it is, and then to even go to oneness with multiple frequencies, all frequencies, or what Jeffrey Martin is doing, where he's using, ultrasound on microtubules to bring you into unity consciousness, right? I mean, goodness, I mean, or just simply doing the sound of gratitude. I mean, those are the three stages that people talked about, I noticed: expressing, shifting, and resonating higher vibrations. And such detail.
Wonderful. Really fascinating. All of these interviews, part of this conference, are available absolutely free in this conference. So we invite folks to get registered for that. The link is here on that page. Really beautiful, too, that we can achieve the neutrality that we need with sound. And you made the sound for gratitude, but it's our own sound, it sounds different for each of us.
Mm.
But the intent to make the tone of gratitude is our own unique tone. And that right there is really interesting. And so you also said that it takes time. It could take time if someone's really deep into trauma. It could take time to rewire the neurons in the brain into new pathways. But the use of sound in the moment, the ability to bring us into a present state and feel it right there, isn't that beautiful? That is significant because one sound is that stepping stone to the next moment that helps us stay stable and consistent.
It's
And
interesting. The
really,
people in non-duality say that's the whole deal, right? It's not a long process. Just one thought away. Just be present, right? Just be present with what is. And then it really is. Even if you've got trauma and it's going to continue and you need to keep working on it, I mean, if you simply don't resist it, that's where the suffering is. It's the basis of Buddhism. All suffering comes from resistance, right? So just allowing it to be, which is expressing it, right? So you're not fighting it, right? That's really critical because being a guy and an Aries, I'm ready to change things in a second, right? So often, I don't like to sit in an emotion that doesn't feel good. But if you're resisting it, you really got to face it and sit with it, to actually be with it and just let it be. Like this anxiety is fine, right? And the word, when you go to fine or okay, that's a vibration of peace. It's so simple. It's okay. Okay. Now, instead of the vibration of sucks, it's like, this sucks. I hate it. Ah, that's the vibration of that, right? And you just go, it's okay. Not only is it okay, let's play with it. Right? Okay. So it is a process, but you can go to bliss and presence in any moment. Spirit, I always think of it this way: spirit is never far from the surface, because that's who we are, right? So to be able to access it, I mean, I've seen people that are completely, really out of it in 5 minutes go, whoa, right? And just totally access these higher levels, right? It's just or I can be a little depressed. I'm not very attached to my emotions, but I can be very depressed, and someone will say just the right thing, and I'm giggling in 5 minutes. Oh, in just a minute, actually. You know, so it's really the it's so inspiring. I mean, think about it. If disease is 100%, or even one person said 80% caused by emotions, that means we could get rid of over half of our healthcare problems. I mean, they say that the reason these higher beings and aliens on other dimensions live for so long is because they're not running emotions. But you can't bypass them. You can't bypass them, right? If you bypass them, they'll get you in the butt. But the thing that I've learned is transmutation, which is quite different, where you actually take an emotion and shift it, face it. You're facing it. So you're not just going to love. You're not just going to gratitude. You're not just skipping it. but which is not all. And let me backtrack because a lot of people think, if you're upset and you just say I love you anyway, right? That you're just bypassing the issue. Well, actually, if you go to love or even gratitude or compassion, you actually bring in this coherent energy that gives you more capacity to actually then go back and actually face the issue. So that's a lot of people think, oh, you're just bypassing. Well, wait a second. No, we're going to a place so we got a little more capacity here, right? So, but then to actually nip it in the bud, like, you know, the ultimate is where you have a situation that it could trigger anger and you immediately go to compassion. And what I do is I think what brought them to do what they're doing. It's entrainment into the craziness of our society, which is based on selfishness, or not based on, but people are running selfishness and greed, and a lot of people are just stressed out. So it's like we're just entrained into that energy. So it's not anybody's fault really, right? So when you do that, whatever they're doing, you can immediately shift it. The Dalai Lama says when somebody gets hurt you, which could trigger anger, they're hurting themselves, and he's giving you an opportunity to practice compassion. So they're helping you. They're hurting. In fact, they're sacrificing themselves for you. So if you do that, you can shift it right there before it even becomes anger. Another one that I did even last week, I was upset because at someone just a couple of days ago, um, and it was funny. Actually, I was upset with one of the presenters because they weren't going to send something out. They weren't going to send a blast out about the conference, and I was like, "What? Wait, you know?" And so I thought, I'm just going to send them love, and I sent love to them that night. And I woke up in the morning. I sent love to them, and an hour later, they emailed me and said, "We decided to send it out anyway."
Powerful. Yes. A beautiful illustration of our vibration. You know, we can talk about Lemuria. We let the laggards in. I say we, the Lemurians, we let the laggards in because we knew our love. We believed our love. We believed in our love so strongly to influence them. And we know what happened. Sadly, we're here today still working towards bringing love back into a higher vibration, but it's all good. So it's really wonderful to have this technology being matched by science and psychotherapists in our world now, because it does show the power of love and compassion and the solution energy that is there, and actually how it does affect another human and why it's so important.
Right. I mean, we're looking at a world within our lifetime where we may have emotions completely taken care of. I mean, if you can use sound and get to a place of oneness with ultrasound and electromagnetics and infrared light and quantum scalar waves all at once, there's not no possibility that you won't go into that blissful state, right? And it's happening now. So we're looking at ultimately, I mean, when you're in bliss, there is no depression, there's no anxiety, there's no PTSD anymore. It's like what you don't even remember what it was like, right? And so we're on the threshold of going to a place where it's like people aren't freaking out anymore. And it's so interesting because I would say in the last 2 years, we are at the peak of negative emotions on this planet. I mean, if it wasn't the virus, it was people arguing about the vaccine, right? And if now it's not the vaccine, it's the war, right? It's like, and it's like we've just been through the ringer, which means that people, it's if you think of it as we always think of it as it's been brought up to be healed. The time is and the timing couldn't be more perfect.
The world needs a whole lot of sound, a whole lot of sound. Some great spiritual teachers have always said, master your emotions. And we
Right.
can master our emotions with sound. When you have a pity party, we're all human. I have pity parties, something, who knows where they come from. We're still clearing this stuff deep in the trenches, right? But when you're having a pity party, some would say, okay, my pity party can last 12 hours, it can last a couple days, but we have the technology with this sound to make it only last as long as we want to bathe in the pity and have a
Right.
party about it. So,
Right.
what would you do? Would you just like tone and then shift it to another tone?
Well, yeah, that's one is express it and then shift it is one way. There's a whole technique that there's even books out about this technique for kids. Uh, I forget the guy who wrote the book, but he says, name it to tame it, right? Name the emotion to tame it. And what you're doing is you're really using the mind, and basically, when you say control the emotions, what we're talking about is not really, we're talking about going into the mind and looking at them as a witness and watching them. And when you go to that point of awareness where you're just watching it, that witness is perfectly still. It has no emotions. So now you're identifying with a still point, watching the emotions, so you're not on the roller coaster. So you can do the whole expressing and transforming and slowly transforming, and or even do sound of the part of the body that's holding the emotion. Right? Or you could one technique, the actual technique that I love the most, it's very similar to Tom Kenyon, and that's where you actually let higher beings make the sound through you to change it. Like, okay, let's have Kuan Yin come in and let this go. That's so beautiful. Or, let's let Christ energy come through, or let's our ancestors do it, or grandma, right? Or, that pink unicorn. Or, just tune into the divas of nature, right? To the elements. Just tune into air, earth, fire, and water and let them come through. And that's really cool. Here's a good one that I like is if you don't know what higher being to bring in, call on the highest being in the universe that's the very best at working with the emotion you have, and then just let them come through your voice. You always use a little protection. Say only for our highest good. Don't want to get any boogers coming in, right? Any sneaky boogers. Got a lot of sneaky boogers out there, right? So only for our highest good. But a lot of people, if you know how to do it, and if not, this is your homework for the rest of your life. Just go to Source, right? And say, please help. Source is not just all frequencies, Source is this profound intelligence that knows precisely what to do frequency wise. whether it's light frequencies or electromagnetic or quantum. Source just knows precise. So you tune into source and you go, and it completely takes care of it, right? So those are some techniques. It's interesting. Alice Bailey talks about going to the initiation where you drop the emotional body altogether. Again, like you said, the ascended masters say the emotions are silly illusions. And that's interesting when you think of emotions as illusions instead of who you are. That's a big difference, right? We are not our emotions. We are a pure, perfect spirit in every way. We are universal love. We are that point of awareness that's still, right? We are not our emotions. And then you ultimately go to this place of just a bubble of light where you don't even ever identify with the emotions again. You got to be careful because some people think, oh, I'm just going to do love and light and not worry about, you know, that emotion that keeps popping up. Well, wait a second. No, maybe you need to really focus on the 3D and see how to release it, and of course see how to change your what you do or how you express so it doesn't happen again, right? But it's so cool because the more you hang out in the light, then you get very clear ideas as to what to do in the 3D. It's so interesting. Ultimately, this is where I aspire to. I haven't exactly got it down, but I'm making headway. Is to be able to bring love and compassion to every situation. I mean, it's almost like you know a cliche, but it's really the truth. The reason it's a cliche is because most people don't know how to do it, and it's not. What I've learned is it's not as much bringing love or compassion to a situation as it is living in love and compassion and making that your lifestyle so you don't have to bring it, you're already in it. It's a perfect example is when you're in love. It's like when I'm in love, I love everybody. It's like you're being mean. Oh, who cares? There's love everywhere. Don't you see? Right? And I'm not having to think to bring love to somebody being weird, right? At all. I don't even think they're weird because I'm in love. And there's zero thought process. It's just you love everybody. So that's the trick, which is a process of simply going to a place of peace and stillness, whether with sound or nature or music, whatever you do, yoga, whatever you do, go to that place of peace more and more and more. And then that's when your heart opens up because you're not in that monkey mind. You're not, right? That's where it comes from. It's really interesting. This is really interesting that love is starts in the emotional body. You don't I mean you can talk about love and never feel it, right? Even you can do a whole class on love and never drop into it, right? Cuz you're just talking about it. But what's really interesting, and this is so precious, sadness, which gets a bad rap, takes you out of your head into your feeling, emotional body, exactly where love is. So people think grief is like a bummer because you're sad. No, you just dropped into the place where love is, right? It's so beautiful. It's like Tom Kenyon says, even Alice Bailey says, when you have a war, they said that the thing with Ukraine is like one of the biggest heart openings we've had in a long time, because so many people on the planet, because especially because uh, it's not so unclear as to whether it's right or wrong, makes it a little easier because it seems so wrong, obviously, to the whole planet,
Yeah.
right? Right. So the heart opening for the Ukrainians is just huge, right? Especially, it's like just one of my students is from Ukraine, and they're dealing with their family. I just sent like $25 to somebody in a shelter right there. It's like it's so heart opening when we have these trauma. So to think of it that way, that it's getting you out of the monkey mind into a emotion where you can totally access love. That's really interesting to, and then take that love and just let that be. Take some focus and will, just an intention. What I often think of is discipline. I am not going to allow myself to hurt myself with an emotion, a negative emotion, over a long period of time. No, right? No. And it's actually exactly the teachings of Buddhism. Buddhism says you have to be disciplined over the lower self, right? So you don't allow it. But then there's kind of that little missing point, missing piece in these teachings is, okay, I'm not going to allow it. What do I do? Well, go into it and transform it. Do it slower, right? But that's the point. It's so cool with the 3 to 6 year olds. We're doing classes with the 3 to 6 year olds right now, every week, 3 classes a week. To have them, we ask every morning, we say, make the sound of how you're feeling. And at first, let me backtrack. I said, okay, on the first class, I go, okay, you guys make this sound. And I'm like, are they going to do it? And every one of them goes, rah, 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 rah. And now, last class, we had 2 kids, each of the kids, and one with in pairs, doing gibberish to each other, totally free. And the other kid's like, right? And so at the beginning of each class now, we have them doing the sound of how they're feeling. Yesterday morning, Summit, this young kid, a little 3-year-old, I said, how you feeling? He said, I'm a little tired. And he said, well, what's that sound like? And he goes, okay, can you shift that? And he totally does it, right? And then Krissa, just the cute, oh man, just this cutest 3-year-old you've ever seen in the universe, right? I said, what sound do you want to do today? And she said, let's do love. And I said, okay, let's send love to all the kids on the planet. And she goes, okay, you can lead it. And she goes, you. And all the kids go, you. And I said, okay, can you guys send a sound of love to your own heart? And they're like, ooh. And they totally did it. Oh my God, it's just so precious to see, because those kids, after 6 weeks of making sound of how they're feeling, they're never going to forget that. In fact, it's so funny. I said, are you guys making sound in between classes? And a parent leaned over and said, oh, yeah. I'm like, yay! They're totally got it now. They are not going to be stopped up. They're going to be able to express themselves the rest of their life now. It's like we've got it going, that it's natural to make the sound of how you're feeling instead of being scared to express yourself, which is so the norm.
Well, I just look fast forward into the future 10, 20 years, and it's like, wow, these kids are going to be our politicians. And can you imagine a world of politicians who are singing or toning how they feel
I love
and
it.
tipping it?
You know, this is what I'm hoping for one day. It's like if you got a football game and one of the football players gets hurt and they actually form a huddle around him and allow him to cry, and when he's done crying, they hold space for him to cry. When he's done crying, they go on with the football game.
Okay, all you coaches out there, take note. Wow. Yes. Oh, yes. That's beautiful. Really opening up to the sound of love. I really love it. You know, you said those kids were talking gibberish. And when people clear these emotions, when we clear the baggage, we open up to higher consciousness, as you've been proving with these presentations. And what we're seeing in our spiritual community is people spontaneously speaking light language, which some would call gibberish. And toning is light language, especially if we can call on another being to speak through our voice, or even connect to source energy and bring source energy through our voice. Wow. What is it with the gibberish too? Do you want to expand on that? Have you thought about it?
Oh boy. You know, it's interesting because the whole point is to get out of the way and have no thought. And gibberish is like you can't think fast enough to do gibberish, right? It's just whatever comes out. Right? There's no thought. So that's interesting. And then light language. Oh my God! Our last conference we had like Judy Satori. It was like right, like oh my God. It's really, and then Tom Kenyon, who is like the master at channeling other beings, right? It's really, really uh, cool. You got to be careful because you don't want to let any wayward souls in, right? But it's really the main thing is with all of this doing sound is to get out of the way and let it come through, right? So you're not actually thinking. And for some people it takes a little bit. And but you know, again, as kids we had it down, right? As babies we had it down. The baby's not going, wonder what type of sound I'll make to cry now, right? It's just totally exactly what they're feeling, right? So we had it down. Right. It's really, and just knowing that it's a matter of remembering instead of learning.
It's a matter of remembering. And so happy remembering, everyone. I know that so many are toning right now and making these sounds. You've given us good techniques for really mastering our emotions and dealing with our energy. We have to be immaculate with it now. This is a responsibility.
Right.
It's also a requirement. I would say it's a requirement for
Mm-hmm.
us to be adult enough, aware enough, conscious enough
Right.
to be very present with our emotions, to really witness, be the observer of our emotions. And that point where we're no longer triggered, there are folks in the spiritual community who are no longer triggered, and
Uh-huh.
amazing things happen. So I know we're still human, but we can get there. And it's almost like the 100 monkey effect,
Uh-huh.
where we will
Uh-huh.
help each other
Right.
get to this beautiful world free of emotions
Imagine
and
if you
less medical.
imagine if everywhere you went, everybody you came across was like going instead of, you know, that sucks or that's cool, that sucks. That's it's like instead we would totally 100th monkey be channeled and trained into that energy. So it's coming. It's coming. I mean, you know, a lot of higher beings or channelers say that even 2027 or 2037, we're going to all be in love and light. So we don't even have to do that work if we just go outside and find more people to be able to resonate it with. Oh my God, it's it's isn't that amazing? Just
I
the
see
thought of
that
it.
world. Yes, I see that world. I envision that world right there with you.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And the ancients know it. The Hawaiians know it. The power of the word, aloha, right? The spirit of the voice. And so we are remembering this and getting really good in practice of it. So what I also love about the Sound Healing Conference, as we're producing it now, are the beautiful sound baths in each of these. Oh my goodness, there is one, Umanaji, who that one, I even sent you an email, David, because it moved me to tears. And if I have your permission, we'll play it at the end of this
Cool,
as a
cool.
bonus.
I'm
Because
scared to watch it through the day because I ready to start bawling, right? I mean, it's just so precious on how to deal with grief. It's just so sweet. Her energy is so beautiful too.
grief, we've all lost someone or something, and it doesn't matter how long ago or when or who or what. Her song just touches you. It touches you so deeply, but it brings a profound level of comfort. I love it. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, so beautiful because she's not just doing the sound of grief. She's actually her lyrics in there are so beautiful. She goes, "The love goes on. The love goes on."
Where did you go?
Right,
And
right.
the love goes on. I know I want to
It,
cry.
oh, it's perfect.
So
Right.
beautiful.
Nice.
Okay. All right, everyone, please register for this conference. It's coming up. It's going to be live streamed. It'll be on replay. There is an upgrade offer with a bunch of bonuses and some courses and previous sound healing conference videos and presentations, a whole wealth of information. And you can upgrade to that, or you could just join the conference for free and get in and learn these techniques and make your life whole with these techniques as you remember this within yourself. David, would you like to share anything more about the overview of this conference?
It's a full perspective. We've got psychotherapists, but we have people that are light beings that are just totally living in the realm of light and love. And their perspective is really beautiful, incredible as well. Actually, that was actually the most inspiring is Shanti and Jamie Liu. Oh my God, to see that perspective. So there's 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 something for everybody, and it's just so applicable for your life and the whole planet. That's the main thing, and it's fun, right? That's the cool thing about sound is it's fun, right? Imagine going to a doctor and they say, "Well, if you just have this much fun, you'll be healed." That's your pill,
That's
right?
the new drug.
Right.
Um,
Let's have fun, and you will be healed. Oh my God.
yeah, that world is coming if it's not already here by our own experience of it. Beautiful. Yes.
So you
Well,
want to let's send love. Let's send love to everybody on the planet with the sound.
okay.
Okay. Nice.
Thank you, David Gibson.
Thank
And
you,
thank you,
Lorette.
everyone, for your love and your light and your mastery of emotions. Namaste.
many of us have lost loved ones. In these last days. My very own mother, who I love dearly, made her transition. And maybe you have someone too who may have made their journey homeward. Life has another side. That side is death. And somehow we must come to terms with the reality of life and death. That doesn't always make it easier, but it helps to have a little support along the way. So all those who have moved on, and those who may be moving on as we speak, we send you with this loving prayer that Unmariji and Leela offer you. Our love goes on and on. Since you've been gone, my heart has felt so all alone. Wishing were here with me. Where did you go? Where did you go? Since you've been gone, my heart has felt your presence gone. And now I feel your love so near. Where did you go? and you said, dry your tears. Where do you think I am? I am here, my dear. Our love goes on and on. Our love goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Our love goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Our love goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Where did you go?